L'incrociatore nemico sta colando a picco.
Ne abbiamo prese 2.
Greetings, sailors, and welcome to a replay of mine in the Marco Polo. And also a bit of silliness at the start of this video. As you saw, I've had double strikes before, but I've never had a double strike quite like that. And in fact, the only comparable thing I can think of that I've done in another game would be in World of Tanks, where it's possible to get two people at the same time, usually with artillery, but I have done it, I'm pretty sure, at least once in the past with the KV-2. And it also put me in mind of another KV-2 game where I took a cross-map shot. I'm pretty sure this is on the channel somewhere. And killed somebody that was unspotted who was in front of somebody who was spotted. So I was aiming at the spotted person and killed the unspotted person. So that's sort of what happened there, except I ended up killing them both. Anyway, so the Marco Polo is the special tier 9 ship, reward ship, whatever the technical designation is from wargaming. Not quite a, proper premium, but anyway. The gimmick of this is that it has 16-inch guns and much better Sigma than most of the main battleship line. And you might be looking at it and thinking, well, it's just a Lepanto with bigger guns, but actually it does look rather different from the Lepanto, and the armour scheme is a bit different as well. The Lepanto does have better deck armour, for example, as well as, of course, some other differences like the smoke generator. This does have better range than Lepanto, though, which is quite nice. You still have the SAP, and together with the 1.8 Sigma as compared to 1.6 on Lepanto, which is fairly painful. The SAP on this is very usable, but I think one thing you have to bear in mind with all of the Italian battleships is that although it's tempting to use the SAP all the time, there are absolutely plenty of times when you should be using the AP shells, and I think this game features a fairly decent mix of both. A lot of the frustration of the line, however, just generally does come with that very poor accuracy overall, along with the long reload times. It's not a combination that's going to endear itself to many people. This itself has got a 36-second reload. I think Lepanto is, 37 seconds? At Tier 9, at least, you have the option of taking the upgrade module that will boost. I almost said bust there. It will bust your reload. No, it will boost your reload at the expense of having potentially better range. But I personally so far have gone with the better range. Not that I actually have Lepanto itself yet. It was just when I was testing it, I tested it with both and preferred to have the better range. But there are certainly situations when you would rather have the better firepower, so it's kind of a tricky call to make, and this is absolutely no different. With the catapult, at least you have the option of having a catapult spotter. And of course, you can put on a special upgrade, which will increase the duration of the spotter. But the problem with the spotters is never actually so much the duration of them as the cooldown that you then have to go through afterwards. So, that would be nice if you could somehow get something that would reduce the cooldown significantly. As it is, you've got, a captain skill that gets you, is it 10% or 20% off? I can't remember. That might not be a bad one to take with Italian battleships if you're heavily relying on the spotter plane. But at Tier 9 and 10, you do, as I said, at least have the option of boosting it through an upgrade instead. This is going to be, by the way, my best damage game by far in this ship. I haven't played that many games in it overall, and I think I've just had a combination of partly of the usual not particularly enjoying high tier games, and the fact that it's a new ship, relatively speaking. I mean, I did get to play a bit in testing as well, but that, and also just bad luck with some teams. Because a lot of the games I've had have been really not good at all. That was a nice 20k hit there, by the way, with the SAP, but if I'd had AP loaded, potentially it could have been citadels and even the kill, given how much broadside they were showing. So, yeah, I don't think my experience so far is necessarily representative of the quality of this ship. And it does have some kind of overall quite nice features to it, certainly. And compared to the absolute frustration of using the other Italian battleships' guns sometimes, this one is much nicer. I mean, 1.8 is nothing special, but compared to 1.6... it certainly feels like a big upgrade. But yeah, the armour overall is still not bad, even if it's not as good as the Lepanto. I think it's got like a 50mm deck, which isn't the best you can get at tier 9, but it's still pretty good. I mean, the German battleships have some 80mm sections. I think Lepanto has got 57mm, something like that. And I think the Soviet battleships will have something similar. Meanwhile, the US battleships have all got like 38mm. So they are far more vulnerable to high explosives, spam and such like. This game, as you can see, it's really not going too well. I've pushed up through the cap here and now we're in this really not particularly great situation where we didn't really face off that many enemy ships here, and we have no control over the middle, and we have lost our destroyers. So we're basically going to get stuck here, and they're going to pick us apart. This isn't going to be a win, I'll tell you that now. You know, inevitably my best game so far, and it absolutely was not a win. So, oh well. But I thought I would still use it just because I have been struggling otherwise to get any decent damage games in it. So, you know, I thought I would at least show off what it can do when the guns are behaving, even if the rest of the circumstances aren't so great. One thing I actually, you know, should point out about this being a ship where you can, of course, just put any old captain in, is compared to your other ships, your other non-premium Italian ships, of course, you can just put Sansonetti in this and therefore potentially get some extra range that way as well. And it's a real pity with the regular Italian battleships that there's no way to get extra Sansonettis to spread around the place, because that would be a real nice feature just to be able to get some extra range throughout the game, but sadly, no. You can pick one of them to do it with, and that's it. So another nice, decent SAP hit there. And against this angled battleship at this range, you know, that's a pretty decent choice. And we're getting to the stage where it's lots of angled battleships, and so I think I will start using the SAP an awful lot more. And the SAP has... I think it's 100 and something mil of penetration. It's just over 100 mil of penetration. So basically it's got the potential to go through any armoured deck, but it can still, of course, be defeated by hitting heavily angled armour, although I think it ricochets at, what is it, like over 80, something like that. So it's got better ricochet angles than the AP shells do. And so it's a good all-round utility shell, and you could just spend the entire game using it. But as I said more towards the start of the video, it is absolutely worth remembering and using your AP shells on this ship as well, and just the Italian ships generally. I mean, the Caracciolo and the Veneto both have very, very good AP penetration. It's just actually hitting with stuff with that AP penetration, and I expect the the Lepanto is going to be no different, having said that. But I think for most people, the point of playing the line is it's not going to be the ships along the way. It's going to be getting to the tier 10, where you suddenly have a whole bunch of barrels to work with, and things are, you know, a bit more reliable feeling. So we're well and truly boxed in at this stage. You know, there's not really a lot I can do. The only thing I was thinking, looking back at this when I was recording it, was maybe if I'd gone south, that might have been more possible to help out that Thunderer that's been forced all the way down, and take some of those cruisers out along the way. But just the fact that we lost our destroyers so early, and that one of the enemy ones is still running around. I think that Benson got taken down, but yeah, there we go, the Salem killed the Benson. But yeah, that meant that we couldn't really cap contest from that point forwards. And although we do have a carrier in play, I mean, and they do have a kill, they weren't able to, or for whatever reason didn't choose to prioritize the enemy destroyers. Maybe just because it was a big blob of enemy ships, which is fair enough. It's only tier 8 carriers in this game. So the Salem's charging in there. I wasn't quite sure why, and I'm also very aware of this Conqueror now moving back up the flank, which would not be nice if they started firing AP into my broadside. These things do technically have turtleback armor, but yeah, you're not ever going to rely on that. It's kind of rubbish turtleback compared to the German turtleback. So yeah, you absolutely just want to treat these like regular battleships in that regard, even though technically, yes, turtleback. So yeah, it's starting to get fire from basically everywhere. That's the Friesland now starting to rain down pitter-patter of tiny shells onto my deck, which I do not like. And the Conqueror is still not focusing me, but you know, if they do, it could be very nasty. And I was hesitant about trying to close the distance while the Vladivostok is there, because if I present a broadside to the Vladivostok while I'm angling against the Conqueror, you know, that's going to be just as bad. So yeah, really no good kind of things I can do right now, no good positions or moves or whatever. Yeah, still a bit too much angle for the AP there, so back to the SAP. If I can get a better broadside, then I can maybe do something against them. I think I've had other games where I've reached over 100k, but a lot of my games so far have just ended in wins or losses before I've even gotten to like 60 or 70k in this game. Partly it might just be new patch syndrome. The new patch has come out, there are new ships, so a bunch of people have come back that maybe haven't played for a while, and yeah, it can sometimes kind of show. So I think that's part of it. That's part of why I've not had particularly good luck starting out with this ship. But it's still a bit frustrating when you're playing the same ship over and over trying to get a good replay and it just won't happen. So I get a turret knocked out there, unfortunately, which is kind of annoying. That was actually pointed forwards as well. But anyway, not a lot I can do about that. I wasn't trying to ram here, this was really just to get up close. And there we go. Nice big chunky double citadel hit, so that killed off the Conqueror. And now I can start firing back to the south. But we just have too few ships left, versus the fact that they have all the cap points and we don't really have any way to get back cap points. If we still had a destroyer left at this stage, maybe, or a cruiser that was a bit sneakier that could have maybe tried to get in one of the caps, but then of course the carrier's still in play and could potentially have disrupted that. So yeah, having lost our destroyers has just been a really big blow, and because that remaining enemy destroyer is a Friesland, there's not a lot that Saipan can do about it. It's one of the very, very few destroyers in the game with actually worthwhile DPM. In fact, just one of the very few ships in the game with worthwhile AA DPM at its tier. Speaking of AA, actually the Italian battleships are not bad for that. The AA DPS is really quite decent. It's just the AA range tends to really suck. I've already had a couple of games in the Andrea Doria where I've gotten, is it AA Defense Expert? I can't remember what the badge is called now, but the one you get for killing 35 aircraft. And of course some of those will be fighters, but far from all of them, because people generally aren't dropping fighters close enough to you for your 3.5 kilometer AA to actually do much about it. So yeah, as long as you're not getting HE spammed to death, the AA can be pretty decent. But if it's dealing with, I mean, if I was in Andrea Doria and dealing with, you know, a tier 8 carrier, that probably wouldn't be quite as effective. But against tier 6 carriers, it's really okay. As I discovered when I was playing the other day with 3 double carrier games in a row, I kind of quit playing in disgust after that, as you might imagine. One of them was a bottom tier game as well, and I think the carriers were still tier 6 in that bottom tier game, but for some reason it still managed to find 2 tier 6 carriers to put into a tier 8 game. It was kind of weird. So that's it, game over. Got the Confederate, I almost said high caliber there, the High Confederate medal, and Dreadnought as well, 190k damage, which is very respectable, and you got to see just how effective that SAP can be sometimes against even kind of moderately angled targets where the AP would just not find purchase. You know, if you're landing 15k on somebody's upper belt when they're angled towards you a bit, then yeah, that's pretty tasty. It really is. So yeah, the guns on this are nice. The accuracy actually feels pretty decent. I just think I've had kind of bad luck so far. So yeah, I shall certainly be playing this one for fun more than I think I'll end up playing the Lepanto for fun, because I'm not looking forward to 1.6 accuracy at all. It's bad enough down on the Andrea Doria when it's still got a semi-reasonable reload. And I remember not liking the Caracciolo that much when I was testing it either. That was one where I definitely was using a lot more AP than the SAP, just because the 15-inch AP on that has quite good penetration. But yeah, accuracy-wise, in terms of its barrel count, not so good. And the Veneto, which I do have, is pretty much the same story, with an even longer reload than the Roma has, so that's fun. It's one of those cases where we can point out, and I was kind of talking about this in that Minsk video, where the premium version is better than the tech tree version, and you can kind of say that for the Roma versus the Veneto as well, although it's not that big of a margin, really. Veneto does, of course, have the smoke generator, which Roma doesn't. Anyway, I'm just rambling now, so let's wrap the video up. Hopefully you have enjoyed this replay, and if you have, you can do all the usual things down underneath it, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.